3, 2, 1.
Good morning. Glad you're here. Wow, this feels like Easter, doesn't it, already? Great music and lots of folks, and we are excited about the Easter season, and we're in a message series called YOLO, which is You Only Live Once. And we're taking a look at the lives of some folks who didn't do that didn't live just once and came back. So it carries all the way through Easter. I don't know if you've ever fallen asleep in a class or in a sermon. Yes, I do know if you've done that, actually. It's those cameras around here. One time I was in high school, I was taking a class from Mr. Castle. He was a great teacher. I really like Mr. Castle. He was a little odd, but he was super fun. And we were having a movie or a film that day. And so I'm in the front row. And I kind of thought, well, maybe I could just zone out. So I propped like this, and Mr. Castle's in the back running the film projector. Now, if you don't know what that is, cutting edge technology. So I thought, I am golden, I'm good. He's not right. He's not going to know. Lights come back on, I'll wake up. Well, I don't know how long I was into my nice little nap when Mr. Castle went like that right in front of my face. Somehow somebody ratted me out. And or maybe it was my snoring. I don't know. But I woke up to his beautiful face. Now, sometimes we get a little bored in school. We get a little bored at church. We're just like, it's not so exciting. And honestly, I own some of that. I know that there's times when I don't do very well. It's like I had a rough week or, a little extra stuff going on. Or, it just didn't feel all that, creative. And so certainly, I can have an off week just like, so I get that. If you got to zone out, that's no big deal. But what do we do about that when periodically we have a little bit of tough stuff on Sunday mornings? And for some of you, you've come in here today a little wiped out, right? Last night was rough. You stayed out way too late. And, somebody woke you up. You didn't want to go to church at 9:30. You were like, I'm doing the 6 o'clock. Well, I'm doing something. But somebody got you up and you're here. And so this week we asked the question on Facebook and on Twitter, what do you do during a boring sermon? And many of you responded, which was a little, I don't know. So I want to give you some practical help today for when you go to another church sometime. Okay, here we go. What do you do during a, and so if you have your phone, get your phone out. You can follow us on Twitter, StoneBridge, or me. Get to Facebook, like us on Facebook, and you can even do this morning. If you want to let me know what you do during a boring sermon, just hashtag sermon fail, and we'll get all that stuff. So here we go. This is what Anna Smalley, our former children's pastor, wrote. Really, Anna? She wrote coffee, and coffee. That helps her out during a boring sermon. Dr. Mom on the Run. She says, I chew gum to stay awake during a boring sermon. My wife always, and she's not here, so I'll tell you, she pops Tic Tacs like crazy. So she's sitting right over here. I said, Brian Murray wrote, I think of a song I like, and I zone out. Right? Andrea Edwards, I tried to figure out if Mama Chitwood picked out Mark's outfit. Yes, she does. Every weekend. Carolyn Parker, I pray. That's right. My eyes are closed because I'm praying. That's very good. We're going to take a look at a guy today that fell asleep during church. And we're going to take a look at Acts chapter 20, 7 through 12. On the first day of the week, we gathered with the local believers to share in the Lord's Supper. Paul was preaching to them, and since he was leaving the next day, he kept talking until midnight. Oh boy. I didn't want to go to church, Mom. The upstairs room where we met was lighted with many flickering lamps. Now, I don't even know why that's important, but okay. I mean, sometimes you read the Bible like, why do we need to know about the flickering lamps? Give us theology, Flickering lamps. All right. Just wasted some. Anyway. As Paul spoke on and on, a young man named Eutychus, sitting in the windowsill, became very drowsy. Finally, he fell asleep and dropped 3 stories to his death below. Paul went down, bent over him, and took him into his arms. Don't worry. Be happy. No, don't worry. He's alive. Then they all went back upstairs, shared in the Lord's Supper, and ate together. Paul continued talking to them until dawn, and then he left. Meanwhile, the young man was taken home alive and well, and everyone was greatly relieved. Probably, we're going to get sued, aren't we? Yeah. Now, the writer of the book of Acts, a man named Luke, is not too kind to Eutychus. He could have just said, the strangest thing happened while Paul was preaching. A young man fell asleep and fell out of the window and died. But no, Luke had to include his name. Eutychus. Eutychus fell asleep and died. Right? He could have just said, some random guy. But he had to include his name. So from here on out, we always know that Eutychus was the guy that died during Paul's sermon. So when we get to heaven, we're meeting, because there's not a lot of Eutychuses out there. We meet Eutychus and we're like, you're the dude? Yes. One time. So we see folks that are meeting, right? It says, on the first day of the week, we gathered with the local believers to share what? In the Lord's Supper, which we know is communion or the Eucharist. And we might have, right, in a church that call it that. And they did this on a regular basis. So here at StoneBridge, we've adopted that pattern as well, so that every time we get together on a Sunday, we have the Lord's Supper, communion. And we do believe that these elements, the juice and the bread there, are symbolic. We don't teach that it's actual body and blood of Christ, but it was given to us to kind of help us remember. I like to think of it, the Lord's Supper, as a photograph, a snapshot of the love of Jesus. So when I got pictures in my wallet of my kids, and I still carry their high school senior pictures because I paid for that. So I keep them in there. They're pretty messed up now, but I like looking at them. It just helps me remember. And I've got other photographs at home and stuff, and people, and those are really important for me. And I'm glad that we remember Jesus every week. Every week we have communion together here, and we remember what he did for our salvation. Now, I know sometimes people are like, well, if you do it every week, doesn't it get a little monotonous? I mean, don't you just kind of start taking it for granted? Well, see, that's the same argument I said to Linda. Is like, I don't think we should kiss that much. Why don't we just do it ever so often? I think it'll mean more to me. Now, she says, I don't think that's going to mean more to me. I think it's going to mean less to me if you tend to, hey, I'm good. Fine, I'm fine, I am fine. Let's just kind of, how about every other month or week or something? No, I don't think so. That doesn't make any sense. And I don't think it makes much sense to Jesus either when we say, ever so often we'll remember you. So here, the Apostle Paul is preaching, and he's leaving town in the morning. So he's got a lot of information to get out. Now, the Apostle Paul is probably one of the most gifted speakers and writers the world's ever known. I mean, this guy's incredible. He's written most of the New Testament. So he's got a lot of stuff to get out. And he knows his time is short, so he's going to pack it all in. This is an all-nighter. And I am a little encouraged by the fact that even the Apostle Paul, as gifted as he was, had a guy that fell asleep during his sermon. So like who do I think I am? If I see a few folks nodding off, that's no big deal to me, right? Because I'm not the Apostle. I didn't write the New Testament. So even he has some people kind of zoning out. So this guy falls asleep. He's sitting in a window 30 feet off the ground. And that's a bad idea. And he falls asleep and he falls and he dies. And the Apostle Paul goes down and investigate, and he throws himself on him, and he says, don't be alarmed, he's alive. Now, I think, again, here's the Bible. I think it's just kind of funny. He brings this guy back to life, and then it says, then they all went back upstairs and had communion together, as if nothing happened. And I was like, what? Yeah, well, Eutychus died, but let's go have communion. Like it's no big deal. But talk about an illustration, right? It's like, hey, death, burial, and resurrection right now. Oh, Eutychus, you want to come up here and serve communion? Yeah, I think, yeah, right? It's just right there. I think from time to time the church gets a little boring, and not necessarily the church's fault. I mean, we do try our very best every weekend, because one of the values we have here is that church should be fun and that church should not be boring. We think it's a sin to bore people with the gospel of Jesus Christ, but occasionally, sometimes that happens. I want you to echo the words of the psalmist David when he wrote, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Now, there's a letter that was written to a pastor to let him know the reasons why they don't come to church that often. And you can kind of keep track of this, right? I didn't add it up, but it's a lot. So this person wrote, I think every person should be excused from going to church for the following reasons. Christmas, the Sunday before or after, because of traveling. New Year, in the Sunday after New Year's. Just because of the holiday. Easter, we traveled to Grandma's that weekend. July 4th weekend, it's a national holiday. Memorial weekend, barbecue with the family. Labor Day, last shot before school starts. Spring break, kids need a break. Family reunion weekend, we got to go to that. 2 Sundays a year just for sleeping in. No big deal. Just 2. Death in the family, probably 2 a year. Anniversary weekend, honeymoon. Sickness, 1 weekend away per family member. So if there's 4, you get, right? You get 4. Business trip, 2. Vacations, 3 weekends. Bad weather, ice or snow, or sometimes just some clouds. 3. Ball games 6 times a year. Time change 2 times a year. Super Bowl weekend, right? And we add that up. It's like there's just not that much time left. So what do we do here? My hope is today is that we aren't like Eutychus, that we don't fall asleep at church. By the way, there's bad things that happen when people fall asleep. Adam dozed off a little bit and he got a wife. He didn't even know about that. How did that happen? I took a nap. Samson fell asleep, got a real bad haircut. So how do you jumpstart your heart, right? If you're falling asleep in church or you're falling asleep spiritually, it's kind of what we're talking about. If you're falling asleep spiritually, and maybe you're even if you're dead spiritually, how do we jumpstart our heart? By the way, I think this is going to require some uncomfortableness in our lives. It's very difficult to fall asleep when you're uncomfortable, right? If you don't have a comfortable bed, or if you don't have, I cannot sleep in an airplane. Like especially even if I'm flying out at midnight and flying through the night, I just can't get comfortable. Even if I buy one of those really expensive pillows and wrap it around my neck, I think, okay, I'm going to put my head, I just can't do it. I'm not comfortable. And so let's talk a little bit about how do we make our lives uncomfortable so that we don't fall asleep. Now, oftentimes people think, well, when I come to church, I want things comfortable. I kind of get that, right? And it's like, okay. But at the same time, for us followers of Jesus, there's got to be moments where our lives get a little bit more uncomfortable, so it keeps us going. Because if I start zoning out or I start coasting, I get a little tired. I think one of the most uncomfortable things for most of us is to give financially to the church. And giving is kind of weird anyway, right? It's like I'm giving away my hard-earned money to people, and it's like, oh, I don't know if that's a good idea. Giving away perfectly good money seems dumb, unless I go to Vegas, and then it seems normal, right? Like, okay, here you go, woo-hoo, here you go. But to give my money away to the church seems weird. But Jesus is super clear on this. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And if you give to Jesus and his church, it just makes sense. My heart is going to pump a little faster. It just does. when I begin to, when I really get serious about this, when I give money away, my heart pumps. It just gets going. It's like giving is like caffeine to a Christian. It's just like, yeah, let's ramp it up. One of the most uncomfortable things I did this year, and you know this, I talked with you already about this, is my trip to Ecuador. I've been asked to go look at an organization down there, Compassion International, and their work there in the Stadia church planting site. And I didn't really want to go. I guess I kind of felt a little bit like I should go. After all, the people who asked me, I really like, and I thought, oh, okay. And it's like, I'm just going to go down there and whatever. And it just killed me. It was just like, and I got my life rocked. And needless to say, I was skeptical, but within hours of being there, I knew that this was real, and these kids were real, and they were receiving real help. Now, the kids that I got to see in that area, is $2 a day is what their family lives on. $2. I got $2 in my wallet. I think if I was to get that out and throw it out, I don't know if anybody would come, grab it. This is $1. Maybe a kid would come like, hey, that'd be good. But most of us adults are like, now if I threw $100 down there, you'd probably go get it. But $2? No, it's nothing, right? It's just nothing. And I saw that these kids were happy and their joy was outrageous. And we made a decision here to build a church in Ecuador. We raised money, and you gave crazy money, and your heart beat a little faster. So I want you to see what's going on our church site at Ecuador today. We got photographs from the planting church there, and here's what it looks like right now in Ecuador. So this is the very first event they had there for a couple hundred kids on their site. The planting church had a big activity there, and these are some of the kids that are on that site. This is the neighborhood. You can see where the church is going to be right there up north. So here it is. It's all level, and they're having a great time, and this is what's going on. This is the neighborhood where the church is being planted. These are some of the moms and the kids that are going to be part of Compassion. Yep, that's what it looks like. My heart just like, I got friends right now that are in that area. They went down on a Compassion trip, and I'm just like, I cannot believe it. You really can make a massive difference in the life of a family. On May 31st, we're going to have Compassion Sunday here at our church. And there's going to be envelopes with you to be able to grab a kid that you can sponsor. And we hope to be able to sponsor 200 kids in the church that we're building, right? And so I hope that you'll think about that. And I know that's like, money, they're asking for money. No, I'm not asking. I'm asking you to take care of a kid. You can do this. You can do this. Go with us to Mexico to build a house. I don't know how your faith wouldn't come alive and your heart would beat a little bit faster. There's all kinds of ways to do that here. Every month, our church goes down to the Open Door Mission. A bunch of folks go down there and make a big, massive difference in the life of our community. If you could volunteer in the youth ministry area, the children's ministry area. I know our church smells a little bit bad today. We had an overnighter, junior high overnighter in this room on Friday night. It smells better than it did, but we had adults here all night long with these kids. Now, that's amazing. And their hearts are beating a little faster because they've seen those junior high kids at church today, and they're high-fiving each other, and they're laughing. I had people like, hey, did you see the video of all those junior high boys singing Eye of the Tiger at 3 o'clock in the morning? Like, no, I didn't see it. No, I didn't look at that. I'm going to now. Right? Because I think that's awesome. 3 o'clock in the morning, Eye of the Tiger. One of the most uncomfortable things that you can do in your spiritual life is to go to a small group. That's really uncomfortable. I mean, to go to somebody's house and read the Bible and pray. I think that's uncomfortable. How do you know, right? How do you know? And so, I know some of you are hesitant. We've added so many more new groups this year. And Jim Hardy, our pastor who oversees all our small groups, has this great thing that I think eases us a little bit in the uncomfortable world. They call it the group link event. And ever so often we have this group link event, which means our small group leaders, the ones that are just kicking off their small groups, come and set up tables, and you come and you check it out. And it's kind of like speed dating, right? And so you sit next to, like, hey, tell me, do you guys serve good food? And what about dessert? And you just interview. Nobody ever says, like, what kind of Bible study? We're like, kolaches? You have dessert there or anything, right? And so you speed date a little bit. It's like, yeah, come to my house. And so it gives a little bit like, hey, I'm going to do this. But it really is uncomfortable to go to a small group for the very first time. And then from here on out, it doesn't get more comfortable. It just gets a little bit more, right? Our hearts just get a little bit more in tune with the things of God. And life change starts taking place. The early church was convinced that this was essential for their lives. In fact, that in the book of Acts, it said that they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, right, and to prayer, and to the fellowship. They devoted themselves to the fellowship. And that wasn't going to church. By the way, if you think this is the fellowship, I think you should be devoted to coming to church. But this is not fellowship time for us. We're not interacting here. I'm doing all the talking, and you're not, right? That's by design. I'm not asking for feedback unless you want on Twitter, which my phone has been getting hit. All right. But you need a place where you can interact with people and pray and talk and share and laugh and cry and do life together. And your heart will beat a little bit faster. 1 John 1, 3 through 4, we proclaim to you that we ourselves have actually seen and heard, so that you may have fellowship with us. And our fellowship is with the Father and His Son, Jesus Christ. We are writing these things so that you may fully share our joy. So there's this connection here, according to John, between our fellowship with God and our fellowship with other people. In fact, the Bible, it makes this massive connection that between our relationship with people and our relationship with God. If we can't be pro-God and not hang out with people, it's just very difficult to pull that off. So one of the quotes that I really like, I read this week, was, when is the last time you did something for the first time? When is the last time you did something for the first time? Meaning, it might be the very first time you ever volunteered somewhere. First time you ever went to a small group. When's the last time for the first time you ever tithe? 10%, whole deal. When's the last time you ever did that? So you see, little children do stuff for the very first time all the time. Everything is new. Everything is interesting. Everything is fresh, right? Us adults are like, I'm too old for that. I'm too tired for that. But a little kid, everything is for the first time. So when's the last time you did something for the very first time for your relationship with God? Where you said, you know what, I'm going to try that. I'm going to do that for the very first time. I think it'll keep you awake. Well, you hear this morning from a guy in our church, John, who's going to share a little bit about his awakening experience with his relationship with Christ. I'm going to pray, and then we'll watch together. Thank you guys so much for this morning and for the time together to take a look into our lives and into your word. And then we're grateful for the fact that you bring us new life, and every day is a chance to live a new life. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
God's presence he's always been a part of my life. I was raised in a strong Catholic home, and that really meant following the rules of the Catholic Church. Understanding and following rules, but not questioning them. It was during my time in Catholic high school that I first had the feeling, this kind of hollow feeling related to following the rules. And I could not get a grip on how my adult leaders at that time could be so sure and certain of all this. Then came the college years, and as happens with many young people, this was my entry into true critical thinking and questioning virtually everything. So this was taking place in the mid-1960s and 70s, a time that was characterized in part by the age of Aquarius, the divisive Vietnam War, Watergate, huge racial unrest and riots in so many cities, including the city that we were living in at the time. So the relevancy of the Catholic Church and the relevancy of God in the world in my life at that time all came into significant question. And with all these questions, I was still trying to make my way with the normal events of life, getting married, raising a family, finding my way into a career that had some relevancy. I spent many years having and doing what I describe as a robotic faith life. I looked pretty much like a follower. Most of the outward expectations were met, but I grew more hollow and more duplicitous as the years went by. When it came to religion, I was absolutely miserable. And I always felt that it was up to me to try and work my way out of this. Then about 13 years ago, Nancy and I relocated to Lancaster, California. A new city for us, and an acquaintance there who knew we were looking for a church family told Nancy about the church that she was attending, and she invited Nancy to attend service with her. So Nancy did that, came home, and said to me, you won't believe it. You've got to come with me and experience this. The following week, I did, and the lead pastor there began with this, his invitation. We gather here to engage the Word of God in the form of adult inquiry. There is no question or circumstance too big, too outrageous, or having been around too long for us not to put forward and expect to receive God's help. This struck my heart as something actually too good to believe. He went on and spoke about relationship, and this absolutely opened my heart to what I can describe no other way than being the fresh air of adult inquiry. It invited, encouraged, and nurtured real conversation, real relationship with a real God. This God was no longer just a presence. He was someone to have a genuine relationship with. I don't have the words to describe the pure joy of opening up to this path of building real relationship with Christ. Through the grace of the Holy Spirit, I've gradually but steadily built a relationship with Jesus it's not built for comfort, but rather for growth, love, struggle, challenge, insight, and yes, a good bit of humor. More clearly than ever before, this awesome God has provided the true north setting for me, which is love and serve God and His people with all the gifts you've been given. Comfort and fear are overrated. True love is not. My name is John, and I'm thankful that every day is a chance to live a new life.